Hi everyone, it's Becky here. So welcome to the last stop of my most recent trip to Victoria, revisiting my university, the University of Victoria here. So we're entering the Ring Road. It feels like traveling back in time, driving through Ring Road. And this is the dormitory that I used to live for the first semester of my first year as a university student. Yeah, it's called the Ring Road Hall. Looking ahead, this is a new building that I've never seen before, and the student union building. Yeah, the same old building as before. I used to hang out here very often for coffee. And the Phoenix Theater, the visual art building there down the lane, and the fine arts building here with the big windows. So everything here around the arts buildings are very much the same as about 10 years ago. And now we're heading to Cadboro Beach, just about 3 minutes outside the university. It's a beautiful street with these trees with elegant canopies and branches and twigs. Here we are at the parking lot of the Cadboro Beach. Yeah, so I've been here with the Victoria Urban Sketchers about 10 years ago, sketching together on a rainy day. And it's a very cloudy day today, but the clouds are looking pretty inspiring. Now, I'm ready to do a quick 45-minute sketch before going away for dinner and then catch the ferry home. Starting with a contour outline of the little aisle there on the left side and just writing down the location. And then keep finishing up the bottom of the aisle, starting to add these boats near and far. These vertical lines of the mast are pretty important to give definition for these boats. So there is a sense of perspective in everything we draw in terms of distance. So these boats, they are looking bigger and the mast is taller for the ones closer to us, and the boats that are more far away, the masts are shorter, and the boat's body are also smaller as well. And also these boats are landing on slightly different horizontal levels as well, drawing the bumpy island there in the distance on the right. Now starting to draw these residential houses on the aisle, surrounded by foliage. Yeah, so there are actually pretty limited numbers of houses on here. Just gonna focus on this one that's pretty close to me on the left side, and then drawing is surrounding trees. Yeah, so all of these trees are looking pretty wild on this aisle. Pretty typical character of West Coast trees, and they're all overlapping each other. And adding some rocks here on the bottom. Yeah, there's a cute yoga class going on behind me. Now, just adding some little bits of details as much as I can for the aisle over here. Adding a lot of weight to this landscape sketch. Accentuate on the bottom part of these boats so they're really attached to the surface of water. And now I'm ready to draw a few people enjoying this lovely view of sunset, sitting on driftwoods. And I see many of them are university students, probably the students of UVic. They look so young, like in their late teenage years, early 20s. And then adding some more driftwoods and the edge of the bank. Yeah, just really following what I'm seeing using a blind contour technique, drawing these driftwoods. Each of them is a unique shape. And then the loose, grainy texture on the surface of these driftwoods. Another piece over here along with some wild grass covering it. So a lot of times drawing organic items is very much like writing. So just to give yourself a lot of freedom. And now I'm drawing this guy just walking along the beach using these loose, quick dashes to depict the ripples on the surface of the sea. And the water is kind of choppy right now probably because of the wind. Yeah, so that's very much it for the line work. And the clouds are looking so dynamic, and the group of yoga people are still enjoying the sunshine and their yoga poses. Now I'm ready to do my watercolors. So the painting process is just 2 times faster than my actual painting speed. Yeah, just getting my water brush here ready, starting with my large tip Holbein brand water brush. Starting to paint the negative spaces, which is the blue sky in between the clouds. Yeah, so these pockets and streaks of cerulean blue. So the clouds and also the sky area closer to the horizon, they look pretty narrow and in thin streaks because of aerial perspective. Things far away, they look very squished or packed up together because of perspective. And now I'm just wetting these white areas, which should be places for the clouds, using super diluted lemon yellow. So as I mentioned before in my previous videos, white clouds in the late afternoon, in the evening, they have a much stronger tint of yellow or even yellow-orange, sometimes red and pink, because they're getting a lot of illuminated colors from the late afternoon sunshine. Yeah, just keeping adding some stronger yellow for some cloud areas. Now I'm ready to shade these clouds. This is a mix of cobalt blue and a little bit of royal purple. Yeah, like a muted blue. Again, for these areas closer to the horizon, I'm using pretty thin brush strokes. These clouds in the far distance, okay, here lower on the paper, they're more far away in terms of distance. And these clouds on the higher part of the paper, they're actually closer to us. And my brush stroke is thicker when shading the layers of clouds here. And also these clouds closer to us, they're going in a more diagonal direction rather than horizontal compared to the ones closer to the horizon. So yeah, they're looking more dynamic and lively. Lots of thick folds, playing with water control and the wet onto wet technique too. So my brush strokes are there, but they're not super strong because the previous diluted yellow is dissolving those brush strokes a little bit. Yeah, so for these clouds and the shade colors for clouds very close to the horizon, I'm using pretty controlled hand pressure to make them as thin as possible, because I mentioned before, because of aerial perspective, clouds and streaks of sky area very close to the horizon, they look very squished or tight together. Yeah, I actually switched to my small tip water brush for these super refined thin lines of clouds. They're in the distance. So when you're painting sky, so really be aware of the sizes of the clouds that's really there. You have to use a little bit of reasoning of aerial perspective. Yeah, and a little bit of accentuation for these clouds in the middle ground. Okay, so that's very much it for the sky area. And I think I captured the essence of those clouds with a lot of turbulence and energy. Now it's time to move on. So I'm just painting the first layer of the sea surface with a super diluted bluish gray. So I like to mix my own gray with cobalt blue, a little bit of green, and a little bit of magenta. In some areas of the sea, as you can see, I'm mixing a little bit of green. Part of the sea is also pretty greenish. So really depending on the situation and your observation. And the first layer for the driftwood is a nice golden glow, the illuminated color. So this color is basically yellow ochre and a little bit of orange. Yeah, so it's very important to paint the luminosity of the time of the day, the weather first, rather than painting the original colors of these surfaces, like the greens of the island, of the foliage. So yeah, the brightest colors always goes first. The luminosity always brightens up the objects first before those local colors. Okay, now it's time to blend on these greens. So this is basically hooker's green and a little bit of yellow ochre. It's also reacting with the very first layer of diluted yellow on the bottom, making it look like a brighter green than a darker shade. Yeah, a bit of orange here for these rocky areas on the bottom. Some burnt sienna for part of the driftwoods. Okay, moving on to the next layer for the foliage. This green is more concentrated. In other words, containing less water compared to the previous layer. So this is a mix of hooker's green and a little bit of burnt sienna. Yeah, a little bit more burnt sienna for even darker shades of green, according to my observation. So the tones of greens on these foliage are pretty unstable. They're not the same tone of green because all of these trees are popping out from the forest at different elevations, catching more or less sunshine. But usually on the bottom of the trees is the most shaded area of green. Yeah, and putting some more impressionistic brushstrokes of orange over here. So these rocks, they look so orangey in the evening sunshine, and also in between the trees. Yeah, some trees are even looking golden and not too green anymore in the evening glow. That's amazing. Keep adding a bit stronger accentuations of brown for these rocks so they pop up even better, and for the roofs of the houses. Yeah, so for things closer to us, their colors or tones should look a little stronger. And grabbing some leftover bluish gray, yeah, to paint the left side of these boats. And that the island there in the far distance. Now I'm starting to add the second layer for the surface of the sea, using pretty choppy brushstrokes and keeping my bluish gray pretty diluted. My brushstroke is pretty choppy because the surface water is really choppy. It is very windy right now. The same location, yeah, the same body of water could look very different from time to time depending on the season, the weather, and also the time of the day. Again, I'm keeping this bluish gray pretty diluted and using very lively, curving up my little choppy brushstrokes a little bit. So in the far distance of the water area, I'm just using the residue of the bluish gray on my brushstroke. Because, details in the distance, they could look a little blurred out. They don't need to look that sharp. Otherwise, those details might come forward to compete with the foreground details. Yeah, so just those little brushstrokes on the upper right, they look kind of faded out, strengthening these foreground waves a little stronger with more concentrated bluish gray. Yeah, so there's a sense of distance here with the surface of the sea. Grabbing some leftover yellow orange and also a bit of burnt sienna and blue mixed in to paint the shaded areas of these driftwoods just on the bottom half. Alright, so moving on to the final polishing stage of this painting. I just painted the wild grass over there with leftover yellow and a little bit of green on the bottom. Just shade the bank a little bit with a slightly more intense yellow-brown. And for the skin colors of these people, I just mix orange and red, diluted with a lot of water, using purplish blues, and sometimes I see a more vibrant blue for some people's shirt and jackets. Yeah, just adding a bit of shadow for these boats' bottom parts. A little bit of renderings here and there. So I found, painting on location to be really important to influence our color choices. because in real life situations we can see much more lively colors compared to seeing those colors in photographs. So I really recommend you to paint as much as you can from real life observations. And yeah, find a little polish, especially those brown rooftops. You really want them to pop out from the aisle. Little bit of a yellow orange stain for the forest. And that's it. Here's the look of my finished sketch. And yeah, look at these clouds. I think rain could be on the way. But anyway, we're heading home after dinner. Going back to Vancouver on the ferry, so I got a treat, a swirl of ice cream, and I sketched it before it melted. And stay tuned for my next video coming up in the next couple of days, drawing and painting these fancy corns I got from a student, and some updates about doo-doo as well. It's a beautiful autumn that we're having right now in Vancouver. So see you again very soon next time. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.